Hello and welcome to the Reflecting Light Show. I am your host, April Rodgers, and today I want to welcome to the show Christy McIntyre. Welcome, Christy. I'm so glad that you are here.
I'm glad.
Christy and her husband are missionaries with Willing to Go, and together they have two wonderful kids. So I'm glad that you're here because we have a lot to discuss.
Yes.
Much to talk about. I met you guys a while back, and my husband and I have had the privilege of knowing you and Ashton for several years and supporting you and your ministry. So talk a little bit about Willing to Go and what you guys are doing.
Yeah. So it was birthed from an opportunity, I suppose. We figured out, I guess it was early 2012, 2011, late 2011, something was stirring in our heart and we couldn't figure it out. And the irony is we thought, let's move houses or let's move schools or let's move these things. And that's what it is.
Right. Little unrest.
We're stirring to a new community, right? And so Ashton had been gone. This was one of these seasons where he had been gone on trips for about 6 weeks. I mean, it was a long time with two little kids. And I taught at the public school in Monroe and thought, this is exhausting, but this is good because he's going to unreached people groups. He was going to places.
So he was already doing missionary work, different places.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
but 6 weeks is a long time to be gone.
I mean, well, okay. He gave me like 24 to 48 hours sometimes between a couple of trips in there, but he'd come home, regroup, we'd wash laundry, and off he'd go again. And it was a good season. It was a growing season, and it was also in some ways really good for our hearts because the kids and I had spent a summer with him in Nicaragua in a remote village. We lived just like the locals. I got to learn how to wash clothes on a rock.
No way. How was that?
It was exhausting.
Yeah.
You know? I have a whole new respect for I don't want to say it's not uncivilized, but the uncommercialized world where you do things by hand and you do it the original way. But I don't know, the people were great. It was a great experience for our kids. But we just thought, this is not where we're supposed to be long term. And we couldn't put our finger on it and came back and went back to school and life and sports and kid stuff. And while he was gone, it just stirred and God just pricked my heart. And I thought, I think we're supposed to go somewhere. And I don't know where that is. And when he got back, he'd been in Southeast Asia in several different places and different countries, closed countries that he wasn't supposed to be in with the gospel. And he gets home and he says, I feel like we're supposed to go somewhere. And I thought, oh great, here we go. We know how this plays out. And when the ministry we were with said, well, we really don't do that. We go with people and come back with people. We don't go and stay. And so we just prayed about it and we thought, well, let's just see what happens. And his comment to me was, well, what would you do over there? And I said, I don't know, I guess I'd teach somehow. So we found out about an international school in Southeast Asia in Thailand, and we were like, let's look into it. Well, that was the middle of October, and by November 1st, I had interviewed and had been accepted to teach special needs at this school. And next thing you know, by April 1st, 2013, we were on a plane to Southeast Asia.
Wow. How old were your kids at that point?
Oh, I think Anna Faith was, 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And Luke was, I guess, 8 or 9.
Goodness.
So little. You don't realize how little they are until we look back at pictures and we go,
like,
they were little.
They
were tiny.
Yeah. So how did they adjust? They were probably fine. It's the adults that it's hard for.
I mean, they had their little blips here and there, but luckily there was a really good community. There was a really good support system. I mean, we were naive to so many things, but they did really well. They did. Good. They adjusted well. It was definitely harder for us because I don't want to say everything's backwards because it's not. It's just really different. So it's hotter. It's very, I don't know, just trying to navigate doctors, trying to not navigate a new school system with a new environment, trying to learn to drive on the opposite side of the road. on the opposite side of a car, you know.
Yeah.
And now it's funny because if there's not cars going with me, there's a lot of times I'll end up on the opposite side of the road.
That's so
It just
crazy.
gets to be habit. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, in a place where there's no churches, there's no church buildings, there's no community of believers as a whole, and you don't just bump into people in the store that you know, or you don't,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, so
that
is that
community.
why you guys decided to pick Thailand? Because it didn't have a big Christian faith-based community.
Yeah, and it's a launching, I don't want to say it's a launching pad, but it's a great place to be if you're going to go to unreached people groups, because the 1040 window that lays over Southeast Asia is the biggest population of unreached people groups. And I mean, just alone in Thailand, 98% of the people are not believers. And
Really?
yes, could you imagine waking up every day, doing life, and never having bumped into a Christian?
I know.
They do that every
Yeah.
day.
Here we are in the Bible Belt, and you bump into them all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So is Christianity taboo over there?
Yes and no. So to be Buddhist, to be Thai is to be Buddhist.
Okay.
So the blue in the middle of the flag that runs through their flag, that is the binding between the two whites and the red, is Buddhism. And so to be a true Thai is to adopt that national religion of Buddhism. And so if I were a Buddhist and I step out of that into the faith of Christianity, I'm walking away from my family.
Yeah.
And I'm telling them, I'm no longer like you. I'm no longer going to believe what you believe. I'm no longer going to support what you support. I'm going to go this way. So it's a really big decision. Several people we know, I would spend hours upon hours spending time with these people, trying to just love them to the Lord, not preaching at them, not screaming at them, not even saying, here, let's read the Bible together, let's do this. No, it's more like, let's do life, and let's just see that Jesus is hope, he is truth, and he is life. And the more time I'd spend with them, they'd say, I really want to know more, I want to ask questions, and I want to go further, but I need to wait till my grandmother passes away. That, to us, that just, could you imagine, your grandmother would be devastated to know that it took that for her to get to know.
So really the persecution falls within the family and being cut off from your family.
Yeah.
That is tough.
Lonely.
Yeah.
And that's not what the body of Christ is. It's
Right.
a body.
So the main way that you guys were able to share Jesus is just by getting to know people and just walking alongside them in their life. I remember Adams and I having lunch with you and Ashton one time that y'all had come back, and you were just here for a short amount of time, and that was something that stuck with me, is that you just immerse yourself into the culture and into their lives, and then that way you were able to start to share bit by bit.
Yeah.
You know, people probably said, what's different about them? I want what they have. And so do you have any stories about how, you know, maybe that transpired in a life or two?
Yeah, we really got to spend a lot of time working out with people. So while we were there, Ashton was a coach at a CrossFit. And so we spent a lot of time at a gym. But it was a really neat location because it not only was a gym, but they had a coffee shop and even a school where students from different universities from the States would come in and do like semester abroad and then go into villages. And actually that wasn't a Christian program, but it is run by a believer. So it kind of had this feel about it. So it just became a really great nebulous of opportunity. So there was lots of places to sit and have conversations with either people coming in or coming out of town, because so many people pop into Chiang Mai, Thailand. It's just it's a hub for travelers, for backpackers, for what do you call the people? Oh, the people that work online. I can't even think. Give me a sec. Digital nomads. Sorry.
Okay.
So digital nomads, people that literally they just need Wi-Fi to work,
Okay.
and they can work anywhere in the world. And there was a lot of opportunities to just sit down and have coffee and ask questions about their life. And it's funny that I think the two things we use the most in our faith conversations or our faith building conversations is we ask questions.
Yes.
And we build community.
Okay.
And so it's very opposite of what we've kind of created in the West of like, come to the church, join a program, do these. And we keep throwing these things out, asking people to come. And we just kind of went and sat in and
interesting
pulled them out, if that makes any sense. So
yeah.
Lots of big questions. And so we actually had a young lady that was a barista at the coffee shop who I would do perspective Bible studies with and in precepts Bible studies with. Yeah. And we would just have a really good time, and then other people would join us or people would ask questions about what we were talking about. And it just got to be a foundation laying thing where it kind of multiplied, and it turned into, we had Saturday church on the campus, and we'd all go in and we'd bring a little food or something and we'd worship, and it just became community.
I love that. Was the language a barrier?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's a really hard language to learn. I think it's kind of beautiful, but it's very weird to the Western ear. And they use their mouth very differently than we do. And for example, they use we would say the letters NG, like the word sang or rang. They put those sounds at the beginning of a word. And so to try to start a word with the ending of a normal word for us is just challenging. Yeah. But it got to be a gift because I got to volunteer at a Thai school in a really impoverished area, and just started spending more and more time with these teenagers and ended up falling in love with them. And I don't think they learned much English, but I learned a lot of Thai. So,
good.
Because their English was so bad. But I was like, it was great. It was
good. Yeah. And what about your kids? Did they come alongside you guys and
they did
and start to find their own community?
They did. They went to an international school, so they had a lot of kids from literally all over the world. I think I'm going to mess it up, but it was probably about 40-something countries in this school. And I thought back to, like, Anna Faith's class had very few American kids in it. And I thought, I didn't even think about that. But they had light skin, but they weren't from the United States. And they spoke English, but they weren't American. So, or North American, if you will. But yeah, they found their own little niche here and there, and even our daughter got involved in teaching the Priceless Cube. It's a anti-trafficking education tool. Wow. So we would go to villages, or we'd go to schools, or teams would come to visit and go into the red light district or to different places, and she'd go with them and pray and teach the Priceless Cube. And so she found a heartbeat of ministry of her own. And then she even got to go to Danera's Totally Tumbling little place and share it with their all-stars one day, and just because it's everywhere. It's even on Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube. People are just trying to find people to traffic. So.
And she's young too, to have
yes, she was really young.
Dabbled in that whole red light district. You know, we had a guest on, and she was talking about that just from a local perspective, but I'm sure that it really is big business over in Thailand.
That's their second largest income is sex tourism.
Wow.
I know. It's like, it just makes you sick.
Yeah, that's tough.
To even think that's a thing.
So you guys were over in Thailand how many years?
We were there about 2.5 years, and we were gone for 2 to Costa Rica, and then we were back for, I guess, almost 3, somewhere in there. So it was a mixed bag. But
and then how did you guys get back to the States?
I don't know. That COVID. So Ashton had come back because his dad got sick with cancer, and so he came back to take care of him, and that's when the world shut down. It was February of 2020. Yeah. And so we locked down over there and couldn't get back, and then finally in May, I mean, it was honestly God's grace, because there was a little window of open opportunity, and we came back, and then our visa was expired and closed, and we couldn't go back. And it was the last thing I remember saying when I walked out the back door my friend had said, "Hey, did you need to take this with you?" And I said, no, I'll be back in 60 days. And so then we weren't. So it's kind of one of those, you can call it it's a hard trauma, but it's also an opportunity for God to just show up, and he's shown up and he's shown off in countless ways. It's just been different than we anticipated.
It wasn't what you thought it was going to be.
No.
And I remember you and I having that conversation, and it was almost a grieving process that you were going through, because you wanted to get back, but they physically would not let you go back over there.
And it's really sad. They're still in kind of a lockdown mode. They just they're keeping most of the schools locked down. They're keeping people kind of shut down in their cities, and it's just been a really challenging season for them. And I think it comes with, they're a different type of government. They're managed a different way. I think there's just a lot of pieces that fall into that, and a lot of fear. They don't have the word faith in their language, really. It doesn't exist the way we use the word faith. And even the word hope doesn't mean what we call it. And I think if you are just trying to live the best you can for this life, because you know you're going to have to do another life and do it better, how do you?
So reincarnation is part of their faith.
Yeah. How do you have hope?
I know. Yeah, that's tough. It really is. So talk a little bit about that, because whenever we were talking about the grieving process of wanting to get back over there, was that because you would build the connections with the people and you wanted to be there for the people, or it was truly home and it was community and you were missing them? Where were you? Yeah. Okay.
No, really, it's all. It's we have a community of people. We left things undone. We were literally, when Ashton had left, we were less than 30 days from launching a whole new arm of ministry. Wow. We were about to use a sports, fitness, mobile opportunity to go to parks, recreation centers. I don't know what they're called. I call them old people schools. It's on Friday mornings, the older people come and meet at this little building and do activities or do fitness or do whatever. And we had started helping teach at those little locations. So we were this close to starting this entire new program, and it just felt like it slipped out of our fingers. And I mean, clearly God had other things, and He's allowed us to do things here that we would have never even dreamed of. But it is hard to know that a lot of the things we were a part of, they're just not happening now.
Right.
You know? But
and it really is. It's a hope and a dream that you have, and that didn't get realized because of the COVID shutdown. And I feel that way about, the things that the Lord had put inside of me, and I was launching the book and all the things that I thought were going to transpire around that, and it didn't happen. And it was a grieving process when I just had to say, okay, like everything that I thought it was going to be, or it was going to look like, when it didn't, I had to shift. And it wasn't that it was bad, and the Lord really took care of it. He was exceedingly abundantly more than I can ask or imagine. He took care of every single thing. But still, whenever you've lived your life and you've poured into something and then it doesn't transpire, you almost are kind of like, oh, okay, like, let me back up for a second. Let me just wrap my mind around this, and then I can go back out. And I think that you and I were walking through that similarly, just in different avenues. And in retrospect, what do you think that the Lord was doing and teaching you during that time?
I think in some ways the entire world is in our same situation.
Right.
Unrealized expectations.
Good. Right.
Right? Is that a great way to put it? Like,
It is.
how many unrealized expectations happened in 2020
Yes.
or even 2021?
Right.
Because I had this little hope, maybe 2021 we will go back, maybe, just maybe. And still not available, still not opportunity, still not there. But I think what he's taught me is, I've told you time and time again, I've equipped you, I'm there with you, I'm walking with you. I may not make the path easy, I may not even make it clear, but I'm there.
It's good.
And I feel like sometimes we either over accentuate our gifts or our spiritual bendings for, and I don't want to say an excuse to like get to do something, but I think sometimes we can also just diminish them and say, oh, this isn't for me, this isn't what I'm good at. And if he's given us a gift, we might as well use it. And
right.
So I feel like in my 20s, when I was much younger, I guess, I had this dream, and it was one of these weird dreams that I'll never forget, and it was about dry bones, and it was pools of dry bones, and he just literally reached down and pulled me up and stood me up and just breathed over me, and bones kind of came alive and came back to life, and it just, the word community just kept washing over me. And I know that's bizarre, but and I don't think I've ever shared that dream with anybody. But I just...
Well, thank you for sharing that.
The word community has always just been deep in my heart. And it's hard. Communities, it involves vulnerability.
Yes.
It involves authenticity.
Yes.
And it involves dedication and just constant giving. And not in a negative, exhausting way, but more of like I'm just going to give myself to this.
Right.
And I think that's what God's taught me is I've done it in different countries. It's time to do that here, and it's okay to lead in vulnerability, or to lead in even almost not fear-based faith, but the fear of, I don't know what God's going to do, and I don't know if He's going to show up in this, but I'm going to walk this way. So
that's beautiful, Christy. I love that.
So that's
really good. Well, you and I were having a conversation around being uncomfortable, and the fact that sometimes God doesn't want us to be comfortable. He wants us to get out of our comfort zones, so then that way we are pushed to that next level to help people, to point others to Him. So talk a little bit about that and what He's teaching you.
I think, honestly, living overseas, you don't have a choice but to be really uncomfortable a lot.
Yeah.
You don't know the language, and you make a lot of really bad mistakes. Some of the ways, like the way you pronounce a word, can mean very different things, and sometimes almost inappropriate things. Okay. And I said this one certain word for years, and had no one ever corrected me. And then finally, my Thai tutor said, "I have to talk to you about this." And I said, why have you waited this long to tell me? How embarrassing. So you have to be okay with being uncomfortable. And I'd say anything. They would just laugh. They're like, you'll just talk nonstop. And I said, because I have to practice. I have to learn it. But I always tell my kids and my dear sweet husband, like, God doesn't care if you're happy.
Yeah.
Because that's not it. It's being uncomfortable in this world makes sense, because we weren't made for this world. We're not of it. We have to be in it, but we're not supposed to be of it.
Good.
And the more we try to like self-soothe with all the things, either the media or the appearances or the stuff, it doesn't make us more comfortable. It just makes us more uncomfortable with uncomfortable. Yeah. And I feel like uncomfortable is just actually God's normal. I was just reading Philippians 2 today about just Paul saying, like, if I have to be poured out. Yes. Okay, I don't think being poured out is very comfortable.
No.
But he says, I'm going to rejoice in it for you. So, I don't know.
That's so good. I think that that's true. And I think that you have great perspective on it, just having lived overseas and then now, living back in the States. And there's a different kind of just uncomfortable over there, and then the uncomfortable here. Like we don't even know what that means. Like if we have to wait 5 minutes for our Cane's fingers to come out, you know, our hot chicken to get in our car, then we are uncomfortable, and that's not even what God is calling us to. But if I think that for you guys going over there and just seeing that you do see things differently than we see them, and I think that for my children too, that it probably would behoove all of us to walk in your shoes and to go and experience the things that you guys have experienced.
We'd love it.
Yeah.
We'll take anybody.
Well,
anybody come on a trip. But.
Hey, well, yeah, be careful what you ask for, right?
That's right. I say it's really dangerous to be my friend because you're probably going to end up on the other side of the world, either living there or going there.
I love that. Well, I do love being your friend, so we shall see. All right, I want to lighten the load a little bit and ask you, is there one thing that is lightening your load these days?
Actually, I'm doing a Bible study right now, and being able to process it. It's Jenny Allen. It's something about head space. Get out of your head. And it's been really good to process that with a friend and with even my teenage kids. That's lightened the load of, I feel like I always have to like preach at them, or I'm stressed to make sure that they're going to launch well really quickly because it's coming very soon in just a few months for one of them. And I think, I've got to throw all this at you, but for just to be able to process that and say, hey, I just realized this about my thinking. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry my thinking has affected you this way, or that I see this in you. And so I know that sounds weird, but that's lightening my load in the sense of, hey, I don't have it together, and I don't have to have it together, but my kids get to see.
Right. That's right.
Maybe I think that'll lighten their load, honestly, to be like, oh,
yeah,
she's going to come down a little bit.
We don't have to control everything.
Yeah.
Control is such a big thing for me.
Do you have that problem?
But not for everybody. I was just going through that with one of my children, and I got scared about something, and so I took something away rather quickly without giving the reasoning behind it. And so I had to go back and I had to apologize and say, I still believe that I made the right decision. However, I did not do it properly the way that I should have. Just talking it through and giving the reason why. And thankfully my kids have grace for me, just like I try to have for them too. So it's a learning process. Well, thank you for coming on the Reflecting Light Show. I feel like this was a great conversation, and we'll shed a lot of light on people who maybe want to get out of their comfort zone, who feel like the Holy Spirit is pricking their heart to go overseas and to be a blessing to other people, and to just to know that it can be done, and you can fall in love with the people, and you can find true community there. So I appreciate you coming on the Reflecting Light Show. You are a light in my life.
Oh, thank you. You the same.
Hello, friends. Thank you so much for tuning into the Reflecting Light Show. We hope that you enjoyed it and you got some positivity out of it. If you did, please let us know and share it with a friend. Until next time, go and be the light.